Our Just Dan NOAA has released their list for the 2022 billion-dollar disasters. Here to discuss them with us is Adam Smith, a climatologist at the NCEI, and joining us from Asheville today. So, Adam, we really appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us. Can you give us a summary? We've got $18 billion disasters this year, which is fewer than years past, but the total cost adds up to more.
Yes, so these 18 events is the third highest total cost on record. We had $165 billion of damage across the 18 events, only behind 2005 and 2017. Last year also was the third highest number of events, only behind the years 2020 and 2021 that had 22 and 20 events respectively. So we still live in a very strong era of these weather and climate extremes that affect most of the country.
And what contributed to that higher cost? When we think of 2005, we think of 2017, meteorologists, hurricanes come to our mind for those years.
That's right. Hurricanes are in fact the costliest extreme that we face in the United States. Over $1 trillion of damage from hurricanes alone over the last 4 decades. And again, this year with Hurricane Ian being the most costly event, over $100 billion is now the third most costly hurricane on record behind hurricanes Katrina and Hurricane Harvey. Again, these hurricane costs certainly lead to these very high cost years.
And we've got 12 severe weather, tornado, and flooding disasters on the map this year. Do any of those stand out to you compared to years past, or just compared to the other events?
Yeah, we had a derecho event on June 13th, quite a few hail events that were actually clustered in Minnesota and Wisconsin and the Dakotas. So more of a central focus on severe weather in 2021 in 2022 than in previous years, which are more along the south and the southeast. But yeah, tornado outbreaks, hail, high wind, typical events that we see across much of the eastern and central parts of the country.
We were covering the flooding event here live when that hit parts of Kentucky and into Virginia as well. And I don't remember seeing a flooding event like that on our disaster list, at least recently. Does that stand out?
Yeah, the flood event, particularly in eastern Kentucky, which has a high vulnerability to floods historically, several dozen fatalities, unfortunately, and just very impactful. One trend we're actually seeing is in the 2010s decade, of course, we're past that now, had more of these billion-dollar flood events, mostly in the central and eastern parts of the country, than we did in the 1980s and 1990s and 2000s combined. So exposure, vulnerability, and climate change all contribute to heavier rainfall and higher flood risk.
And on the other end of the spectrum, Western heat and drought was on the list once again this year. What contributes to making that a billion-dollar disaster?
Yeah, in fact, the 2022 Western and Central drought and heat wave was the most costly we've had since 2012. A $22.2 billion event across more than half of the United States, from California to the central, heavy agricultural states, all the way to the Mississippi River with the low water flow. So many sectors, millions of people were affected in different ways by both the heat and the drought. And that would be the second most costly event, only behind Hurricane Ian for 2022.
And what can we do to prepare for these events, to make our country more resilient to these billion-dollar disasters, or maybe help to get folks prepared so we don't have so much damage?
Yeah, great question. Really, since the year 2016 to present, the last 7 years, these billion-dollar disasters have caused over $1 trillion of damage across the United States. And different regions have different hazards or combinations of hazards they have to manage and better mitigate. So I think that the lesson is try to learn maybe best practices or changes in the way that we design or mitigate our infrastructure and our homes and our businesses for these extremes that we know will continue to happen. And so it'll help us save money in the future as these extremes also continue to happen.
All right, Adam Smith, really appreciate your time joining us from the NCEI today to talk about the newly released list of billion-dollar disasters in 2022. We appreciate your time today.